Okay, we're on. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of You Can't Come Over, But You Can Come In. Our guest today is a guy whose heart beats in the same lane as mine, which is traditional country music. So I'm so excited to welcome Kendell Marvel to the show.
How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Well, I'm dealing with this like everybody else is, just trying not to go crazy.
So are you in your office right now?
Yeah, I'm at the house. Yeah, I got a little
Oh,
office
okay. So
here.
not in the publishing office then, just,
Nope, just at the house.
okay. Like the rest of us, staying home.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think my publishing office is even open. I think they've been closed since March. I don't look for them to even open up this year, actually.
That's like my publisher too. They won't even allow anybody in the building because of liability
Yeah,
issues. Now, I
yeah,
wrote with someone last week in person for the first time. I mean, we were distanced, but it was in a publishing office, and it did feel a little weird. I felt great, it's been so long,
yeah.
um, but I was like, wow, this feels like great, but I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, I wrote in person. It's probably been a month or two ago, but we wrote out on the back patio, wrote outside. Me and Paul Cawthon. I'm not sure I'd want to be in the office or have him in my house anyway, even if there wasn't a pandemic going on.
Well, I so loved, we've written one time and I loved you when we wrote, but I was so excited that you wanted to do this. And so I tried to do as much research on you as I could. Everybody I ever have on here, I go to their Wikipedia, and then I went to your publisher's website. And
Hmm.
the thing that I found the most interesting was that your first song, the first day you wrote in Nashville, became a Gary Allan hit, Right Where I Need to Be.
It sure did. Yeah. I always talk about that in most of my interviews, and people say, "Man, you must have been really good." And I was like, "No, I was just in the right room at the right time with the right dude." And we had an idea, and it just fell out.
Well, and it must have, I don't know if that would have happened to me. You and I moved to town right about the same time. I think I moved in 97 and you moved in 98. That would have definitely set me up to be highly disappointed after, since it's so not the way it usually goes.
Yeah, it takes a bit. I actually got a couple few cuts my first year, and the second hit took a couple years, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't have the not luxury of struggling when I got here. Obviously struggled my whole life up to that point, but
Hmm.
once I got here, the success came pretty quick, and it's been decently steady. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've had a hit, but I still stay relevant enough to write with the right people, and a lot
Hmm.
of my friends went on to become stars, so that don't hurt things a bit.
So I know for me, when I moved to Nashville, I didn't have a clue. Like I thought I was writing really good songs, and I realized really quickly that I wasn't. Clearly, you were. To write a song like "Right Where I Need to Be," your bar was already high. Why do you think that was?
I don't know because I really hadn't written a ton of songs. I mean, I really wrote. I got a few good ones in the couple early years, but I've got way more bad ones than good ones. So I don't know. I was just, I already knew some really good writers, kind of took me under their wings, and that
Mhm.
didn't hurt. And I still try to do that. I say that all the time as well. I still want to write with people who are better than me, like you. I want to write with people who take me somewhere and teach me something. And it's always a learning experience. And I guess that
Yeah,
will keep you getting better. I don't know.
I feel like that. Do you know Rory Burke?
Yes.
So Rory told me early on, if you want to be a songwriter, you have to commit to being a lifelong learner. And that really stuck with me. And I know you're the same way. I try to get in rooms with people who are better than me, and also people who are newer than me. A lot of times, the way somebody 10 years younger than me is going to say it is different, and that can sometimes take me to a different cool place. I know you're the same way about that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, the different is always the best. I mean, if you get two redneck guys in a room, they're going to write something redneck, So I told somebody on a podcast yesterday. I said, he's from New Jersey. I said, hey, I like to sit down and write with people from New Jersey. They say stuff different than I do. We
Hmm.
might say the same thing, but they're going to say it different than I do. And usually both of us will benefit from that for sure.
Totally. So I saw that you started singing in bars when you were 10.
Yep.
And your dad a musician?
No, he was a coal miner. He was a welder in the coal mines, but he was a pseudo guitar player. And
Wow.
he had
So,
some great old guitars for somebody who wasn't, a professional musician, which I've still got some of the old. I got an old '56 J200 Gibson that he had back then, and he had an old Martin. So he had some, but I think back then all them old guitars wasn't really worth anything. They was just playing acoustic guitars, and a lot of people had them. But no, he wasn't. He wasn't a great musician, but he taught me, got me a start.
yeah, clearly loved you enough to take you to all those bars. And I saw that he would get free beer and you would get free pickled eggs, which I thought was so sweet.
Yeah, I'd get pickled eggs and beef jerky, but I think he was awfully proud of me, and still is to this day. But he definitely liked the free beer, and he abused it.
So I always like to ask everybody on here this question. What was a song you remember hearing as a child that made you want to write and sing? That you just, beyond just being in the car and listening or being at home, that just hit you in a deeper place?
There were so many when I was young. We always had a record player. Dad had a great record collection, so there was always everything from Hank Williams to Alice Cooper would be played. Commander Cody to Doc Watson. Just a big random bunch of songs. And I was always a music fan, but when I was, probably 12 or 13 years old, I got into looking at who, if I found a song I liked, I'd be like, who wrote that song? I'd always look at the liner notes, and I still do that to this day. If I buy a record, when I go over, a lot of them don't have them anymore, which I hate, because I like to know who wrote that song. I always tell Bob DePiro, I was like, what? I knew his name and Tom Shapiro way before I moved to town, because them guys, and Mark Sanders was just killing in the '90s, and it's just like I'd always see him on the music videos and act like I knew him. That's a Bob DePiro song or whoever. So I've always but it was about 12 or 13 when I really started digging into songs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not like a song just for a beat or because it felt good or whatever. That something that just like, wow, that's so good.
Mm-hmm. Those were names I knew too. I ended up at a publishing company with Mark Sanders, and he doesn't know this, but he was like a god to me. I mean, I was more nervous to meet him than I would have been to meet like Garth Brooks,
Right.
just, and I ended up getting to write with him and love him and know him. But yeah, those names, Tony Brown, that was a name I saw on all these records. I had Tony Brown pictured in my head. He looked nothing like what I pictured him. Gretchen Peters, I discovered through Patty Loveless records. Those were, I miss seeing names on records too. And
Me too, and I miss Patty Loveless, dadgummit. I wish she would come back and make a record.
Me too. A couple of years ago, I was playing the City Winery in Atlanta, and Jordan Powell, who's a friend of mine, he didn't know I was such a Patty fan, and I said, "Oh my God, she next to Patsy Cline, she was my favorite female singer." And he said, well, "You should reach out to her and invite her to your show in Atlanta." And so I did, and she couldn't come because she had some stuff going on. But I would never abuse it, but I always think, oh, I have Patty Loveless in my phone. And she would respond to a text. And man, those, we need more singers like that.
Absolutely. And what I loved about Patty is she cut so many great, them kind of artists. There's still a few around that's like her, as far as like her and Emery picked great songs. I'm not sure who A&R them projects, or if Emery done most of the A&R for them. But man, they didn't care anything about writing any songs. I don't know if she was a songwriter or not, but it obviously did not hurt her career because they picked such great songs for her. Mm-hmm. The Tony Lane stuff, or not Tony Lane, but Tony Arata.
Oh yeah. Here I am.
That song to this day wrecks me. I've got her CD in my greatest hits in the car, and that's my wife's favorite CD. I think we wear that thing out. It's just full.
When Fallen Angels Fly is my favorite album of all time, and so that album from halfway down all the way to Over My Shoulder, there's not a song on that record that's not. It's all Song of the Year quality. And I think I was just talking on a podcast earlier today about how so many of my favorite artists really weren't songwriters. They were, you know, George Strait's another one for me. I mean, I know he writes some, but he wasn't a singer-songwriter. Reba, who's a great writer, but mostly cut outside songs. And Patty, definitely, Patty, Trisha Yearwood, all of those.
Sure. And boy, look at Walk Away Joe and all the Dean Dillon songs that George cut. I mean, just imagine if George had been greedy and tried to be a songwriter back in those days, how many songs would have maybe not got recorded, you know?
Yeah, and who knows what kind of a career he would have had, because he really, all those artists we just mentioned had, you know, multiple record careers, and I think it's because the songs were just so great.
Yeah, that's for sure. Maybe some of these newer artists should probably go back and take a little lesson from some of those folks, I'm thinking.
I would agree. I mean, you know, when I was also talking about, and this is usually one of the last questions I ask, but somebody was asking, wanted to ask you this. Somebody was asking me, since I've been in Nashville, what's changed the most? And as far as songwriting, and I said that very thing, that outside cuts are harder and harder to come by. You know, when I first moved to Nashville, not very many, unless somebody was a real singer-songwriter, they weren't writing their records. How do you feel?
Oh, I feel exactly that way. It's just you either have to write it with an artist or with a producer now, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, and I'm sorry if my dog, I've got a little dog fight going on over here.
Hopefully. I wasn't sure if it was your dog or mine.
No, it's my dog. They fight over, they're little dogs, but they have a big growl. I think they're breaking it up now. They're fighting literally over a beer bottle, like a fake beer bottle. They're fighting. So speaking of albums, you've made two, both great, Lowdown and Lonesome and Solid Gold Sounds, and both with really, I think, amazing and interesting producer choices. Keith Gaddis for Lowdown and Lonesome, and then Dan Auerbach and David Ferguson for Solid Gold Sounds. How did those come about?
Well, Gaddis, on the first record, when I decided to make a record at the tender age of 46, he was a buddy of mine. We've written a lot of songs together and we're just pals. And I liked what he does. You know, I just like the sound of things he's doing over there at Pioneer Town. And he was just, I knew he would I loved his records, and he produces his own records. So I knew that, he could he could make me sound way cooler than what I was. And that was a lot of fun. You know, and that was my first foray into making records. You know, I'd never made records before. I always just wrote songs. So it was interesting. I figured I'd go over there and play him a bunch of songs, and we'd pick 10 songs and record those songs. And it wasn't the way it was. You know, he said, what do you want this record to be about? And I said, I love Lowdown and Lonesome. Him and I had written that with Randy Houser. Randy had cut it years before. And I said, I'd like to center it all around that song. And all the songs, I either want to be low down or I want to be lonesome. And he was like, oh, that's a great idea. So we picked about 5 songs out of my catalog that we both agreed on. And then me and him wrote the rest of it. And except for the Charter Daniels cover we done. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of cool. You know, people, I kind of, you know, even at my little small scale as an artist, people would be like, hey, did you cut this song? You know, and I'd be like, no, that's a great song. I love that song, but it just didn't fit what we were doing. And there's been so many times I've had that happen to me, and it would piss me off. I'd be like, what do you mean? It's a great song. Mm-hmm. You know, when you start making records, you realize that it's not just a bunch of songs thrown together. It's got to make sense as an album. You know, if you want to make records, which I think people have gotten away from as well, they just want a couple hits and then fill it up with crap. You know, it seems like a lot of people do.
You are so much like me, because one of the best things that happened to me as a songwriter was to make my own records for that very reason. My feelings would get so hurt. I'd get so pissed off and be like, this song is better than, you know, 4 of the songs on the record. And then when you make your own record, you realize, well, it's not necessarily better. It's about, does it work for the record? Like, so that's a real gift in someone like you or me making a record. If every songwriter went out and made a record, they'd understand that a little better, I think.
Do you find that you sometimes get cuts off your records after you put a record out?
Yes. And, you know, also what happens, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I'll have songs that are sitting around that I'm real mad nobody's cut. And then the second I decide I'm going to make a record, all of a sudden somebody wants those songs, and it'll be the song that the label wants to go with. And so I'll be like, I can't let you have it. And I never, I don't know if I'd feel differently if my stuff were more well received on country radio, but I never feel like songs have just one home. Just because we were talking about Reba, she's cut a couple of my songs that I've also cut, and I never feel like it's less than because one of us has cut it before the other. I just feel like it's different.
Sure, everybody has their own, style of doing things. On Low Down and Lonesome, I had Untangle My Mind, and then stapled. I wrote with Chris, and then Chris cut it, and we got totally different versions. He done it the way we wrote it, and then I done like a honky tonk, a little more up tempo version of it. And I was going to cut either way as well, and just do it like a solo, like he did, like the work tape was. And then when I found out it was the single, his first single, I thought, I'm not going to do it. I will, we have the same album cuts, it's fine, but I'm not going to step on his single, and I sure don't want him any reason for him not to put it on the record. So.
And wow, that is probably, of all of your songs I know, Either Way is my favorite. And to me, it's always been a Leanne Womack song, because that was the first time I heard it, was on her record. I think it was
Call Me Crazy.
Call Me Crazy, yeah. I can always remember.
That's Tony Brown record. Great record.
Yeah, just a great record. But that's where I remember that song the first time, and that's also the mark of a great song, that she could do it, Chris could do it, you could do it.
I appreciate that, and that's a sad ass song. There's nothing happy about that song, but that's probably my favorite recording that I've ever had by somebody else, and both in versions. I mean, and I always, I told Chris, and he'll probably agree with me too. I always give the edge to Leanne on that. Because there's just something about a woman singing those lyrics. It's sad. It's sad when a guy does it, but when a woman does it, it just seems so much sadder to me for some reason. I don't know why. And she cut that twice. She cut it with Byron, and I remember I heard the cut. I was like, wow. And it just did not come across the way obviously she intended it to come across either, because it didn't. She ended up going and recutting it with Tony. But when they got it right, oh man, that's probably my favorite cut I've ever had.
Wow. Well, she's always been my dream cut. I've never gotten a cut on her, but I think she's the best female country singer we've had in a long time. Yeah.
Her and Patty are hands down my two favorite, just traditional, just stone cold, bone ass country singers.
Bone ass country, I love
it. And they just have just great song sense. They're very cool. They can be really, really traditional country and yet be so cool. It's just like rock star cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just love what they do, both of them.
So your record came out in October, the last record. Are you looking at a new record yet? Or are you still sitting in that for a while?
We're still sitting here for right now. We just put out a bonus track, a song called Houston, an old Lee Hazelwood song. And I wasn't super familiar with Lee, but he wrote like These Boots Are Made for Walking, and produced a lot of Nancy Sinatra stuff. But I remember Ferg brought me this song the night before we started the record. He said, we need to cut some covers, 2 cover songs. Dan's got one, I got one. And he played with Dean Martin's version of it. And it was, real Houston, just like you'd think it was real snappy and, no tune. And I liked the song. It was really cool. And I said, well, if we could cut it like Waylon Jennings would cut it, let's do it. And by God, we did. That band come in there and nailed it. And it was a lot of fun to do. So we just put that, I said all that to say this. We just put that out as a bonus track last month. And so that's going to buy us a little time. I figure we haven't even talked about a new record yet. I'm hoping to do another one with Dan and Dave.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. This weird time with all this crap going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ain't much business being talked about, so I don't know.
Well, and you haven't even had a chance to tour this record. I mean,
right.
So I want to talk to you about that too. I know you've been on the road with Chris Stapleton. I think you were getting ready to be on the road with him some more. What's that been like to see somebody who you've written, almost 100 songs with, all of a sudden you're on the road with him? That's got to be a dream come true.
It is a dream come true, to me. I'm a honky tonk singer. I play the exit in places like that, gritty little joints, and that's my thing. to go from that to playing arenas with him and Brothers Osborne, who I love them guys as well, was so much fun. Made a lot of fans. Obviously, he's kind enough. He don't have to take. He can take anybody he wants to out there. He didn't have to take me out there, so that was very kind of him and Morgan to do that. And yeah, I learned so much on that tour on just how that big machine works. I mean, it's way different than my little organization. I mean, it's a big thing. So, and I've told people that too. With the virus going on and not being able to do it this year, because we were going to play some stadiums. We was going to play in Atlanta Braves Stadium with Hank Jr. and Sheryl Crow. I mean, there was some stuff that's going to go on that's like, this may be my only chance to ever do that. So it was going to be a lot of fun. It's frustrating. I got kind of pissed, and I sometimes go off on Twitter. I don't know if you ever see. I'm pretty mouthy on there. I probably shouldn't be. I've been put in Twitter jail a couple times. I really gave some artists some hell for going out and playing some shows, only because the shows wasn't done right. You see these drive-in shows, how people are doing them, and if we can do them, that's fantastic, because they seem to have their crap together on doing shows and keeping everybody safe, us and them.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these guys just jumped into these shows, and it just looked like a DJ show with all these kids packed together. And so I sounded off on that, and the reason I've done that is not only because I obviously don't want anybody to get sick and die from this crap, but I'm 50 years old, and I had a little bit of momentum going as well. Mm-hmm. And who's to say I'll have that momentum when that comes back? I may not. Luckily Chris is going to keep me on next year. Hopefully everything will be a go. But that, who knows how long this could be? If it's a couple years away, people may not have a clue who I am, and I may just be writing songs again, which is fine too. It's not a bad gig if you can make a living writing songs by anything. But
it's not. But I'm with you. I get mad about the same thing because a couple of idiots ruin it for everybody.
Right. It just drags it out. I was supposed to be in Alaska this weekend. The other guys who was playing it went ahead and played, and I couldn't do it. I just said, not only do I not really want to get on an airplane right now, after me calling other people out, it's just not, even if it was put on right, which I'm not 100% sure, I just wasn't willing to take that chance, So it cost me a little money and a great fishing trip.
So you led me right into my next question. I was going to ask, I know you do the yearly songwriting trip to Alaska. My brother lives in Alaska, so I'm very familiar with Alaska. Why Alaska?
I went up there on a BMI thing 8 years ago, I guess it was. And this guy he was a radio personality at the time. And he was like, I'd like to get some, not just songwriters up there, but some artists,
Mm-hmm.
To do acoustic shows like this, like a songwriter type thing. And I was like, well, I can ask around anybody from Jake Owen, Brothers Osborne. So there's just so many. I don't even know where to begin. Lee Bryce. Everybody wants to go up there and go, I say it pays decent money for an acoustic gig, pays your expenses, and we get to go on a hell of a fishing trip. So it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we always time it to go during the king salmon run, so we get up there and get in some salmon. So when we come back and do these again next year, hopefully, you need to go up there and obviously, especially since your brother's up there. I mean,
I would love to do that with you. And when you talk about the fishing trip, whenever somebody starts bragging to me about their trophies, be it hunting or fishing, I just let them brag. But I think, brother, you have no idea. My brother, they have moose walk up on their porch. Like,
it's amazing.
These little deer you're shooting, they look like little dogs.
Exactly. Now, where's your brother live at up there?
He lives in Wasilla.
Okay, I played in Wasilla several times. Me and Randy Hauser played there this past February.
Okay, well, my brother might have been at the show. He works in Kotzebue, which is 30 miles inside the Arctic Circle. Wow. So he lives, he and his son, one of his sons was just down here with me, and they just live a different life than the lower 48.
Okay.
And I actually think it's better in a lot of ways. Like my nephew, he kept me so busy because his whole life is outside.
Yeah.
He just wants to ride bikes and hike and, look for wildlife and all that fun stuff.
What a way to grow up. Did he grow up there, your nephew? Wow. See, now that I went up there for the first time when I was 14. My parents got divorced that summer or that spring, and me and my dad just took off for 3 months and drove to Alaska, and slept in the back. We had a little Chevy S10 truck with a camper shell. We camped all the way up there. It was just stayed going for 3 months. That was my first time going to Alaska and my first time going to Sturgis to the biker rally. We stopped there on the way home. That was quite eye-opening as well.
Oh, I love that. I could talk to you all day. I can tell that already. I got to ask you a few more questions and I'll let you go, but I'm in for Alaska. Just tell me when. Um, so since you've been in Nashville, has there been a song you didn't write that you thought, man, I'd give up something to have written that?
Oh, I mean, yeah, there's so many. I mean, one of my favorites, Walk Away Joe.
Mm,
It was
yeah.
fantastic, floored me. House That Built Me, anything Alan Shamblin puts his mind to, it's just great. Just a brilliant writer. And In Color, I thought In Color from Jamie Johnson was one of my favorite songs too. But there's a handful, yeah. I mean, or there's way more than a handful.
Well, those were all.
But those three right there are songs like, wow, I would give up that batch of songs there that I wrote and made money on for one of those.
Mhm.
Even if I didn't make money on those, just to be able to sing that song and say that I came up with that.
Those is all I remember where I was when I heard all three of those the first time. Like those songs those are those stop you in your tracks kind of songs.
Man.
Um, what is your favorite song you've written?
That's
And I'd love it if you'd play a little bit of it for us. Doesn't have to be cut, doesn't have to be.
well, we've already discussed it. I would probably have to go with Either Way is right up there at the top. You want me to play you a verse and a chorus? Or?
I love that. And I'm telling you right now, anybody on this show that doesn't know you, you've gained some fans and they are great fans to have. They are rabid. They'll come find you and they love a honky tonk.
Fantastic. I ain't sang in a couple days, so this could be treacherous. We pass in the hall on our way to separate rooms. The only time we ever talk. And the monthly bills are due. We go to work, we go to church, fake the perfect life. I'm past the point of give a damn. All my tears are crying. We can just go home like this. Say the word, we'll call it quits. Baby, you can go, or you can stay. I won't love you either way. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
Ooh, man, I would say Leanne and Chris Who. I mean that you. Whew,
Thank
yeah.
you very much. I love that. I love that song a lot. It's easy to sing when you love something.
Well, that was pretty kick-ass right there. Kendell, thank you so much for being on here. Everybody, when you're in Nashville and there's no COVID, there is the Kendell Marvel Honky Tonk Experience. That's once a month, correct, at the Exit Inn?
Well, it used to be. Now, I think we only had 3 or 4 scheduled this year. We had a pretty busy year. So I think we're working on some other stuff. We'll probably do it about 4 times a year.
So if you're in town, check, see if that's going on. Definitely a cool night. And then Low Down and Lonesome, Solid Gold Sounds, and then the new single Houston. Get all of that if you don't have it. But anyways, Kendell, you've been one of my favorite guests. And
Awesome.
Thanks for being on here, and thanks for writing great country music and singing it.
You as well. I'm a fan, and we got to get back together and see if we can make something up.
Let's do that.
Sound like a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy.